Our Voice, celebrating the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Awards, features original artwork from 101 award and honor-winning titles by 34 African American authors and illustrators. Awarded annually by the American Library Association for books about the African American experience, Coretta Scott King Book Awards celebrate African American life and culture. The awards commemorate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and honor his wife, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, for her courage and determination to continue the work for peace and world brotherhood. In this video, we'll hear from artists and authors Leo and Diane Dillon, who won the Coretta Scott King Award 6 times between 1986 and 2008. The Dillons will talk about what the award has meant to them and their work for Rap-a-Tap-Tap, Here's Bojangles, Think of That, Jazz on a Saturday Night, The People Could Fly, American Black Folk Tales, and Her Stories, African American Folk Tales, Fairy Tales, and True Tales.
Hi, my name is Leo Dillon, and Diane and I wrote and illustrated Rap-a-Tap-Tap, Here's Bojangles, Think of That.
Hi, my name is Diane Dillon, and Leo and I work together on each book we illustrate.
All through the book, Bojangles is dancing. We showed the movement of his legs and feet. It is up to the illustrator to make decisions of how and what to show. We have to build a world and show details that may not be in the text. With a story of very few words like this one, we have to create the scene from our imagination.
We decided on a flat graphic style similar to our jazz book, which we also wrote. The medium is gouache, a water-based paint, because it is good for achieving a smooth, flat color. For the feeling of movement, we overlapped shapes and varied the color. We also achieved a transparent feeling in places. For example, the yellow boot in front of the table of fish. Leo and I illustrated The People Could Fly, American Black Folk Tales by Virginia Hamilton. We loved illustrating this book because when we were children, there were no books that showed African American children in fairy tales and folk tales. Before we start a drawing, we read the story carefully so we can decide what we want to illustrate. As illustrators, we make decisions of what the character looks like, what she is wearing, and what the woods will look like. There's a lot of freedom to invent, even though we have the words to follow.
We used a pastel technique for the finished art. The pastel makes soft blending, and we could erase out the highlights. Since pastel is a powder, we have to fix it with fixative, so it won't smear or wipe off. It is a slow, tedious technique, but we like the effect it produces. This is the second time we have illustrated this story. The first time it was with a collection of other stories, and the illustrations were black and white. This time it was done as a picture book in full color. The book was a memorial to the author, Virginia, who had died. We did this book with love because we had become friends with Virginia and had illustrated several of her books.
We first do careful drawings before doing the finished color art. These pictures were done in acrylic paint. Acrylics give a similar look of oil paint, but dry much faster, which is important when working against a deadline. Our focus was on showing the emotions of the people, the anger, fear, and cruelty, and the joy of flying to freedom. Often we use borders, and here they reflect what is happening. If the scene is oppressive, the borders are dark at the top. In the freedom scenes, they get light at the top.
Art and literature help us see ourselves in the world and imagine new versions of ourselves. It's important for people of all ages to recognize themselves in creative work and to have their experiences validated, but it's especially important for children who are learning to imagine who they are and who they can become. The idea of by us, for us, is important to establishing self-efficacy. Art and literature also provide a platform for children to make connections with people they may perceive as different from themselves, and see instead what binds our common human experience.